Welcome to the Self-Trust Solution, the podcast for entrepreneurs, leaders, and high achievers who are done second-guessing and ready to execute with clarity. I'm your host, Dawn Leday, the Self-Trust Coach, and each week I'll help you build the one strategy that makes all others work, self-trust. This is where bold goals meet grounded action. Let's dive in. What if the strongest leadership skill wasn't strategy or charisma, but your ability to ask one powerful question at the end of each day? Welcome back. Today, we're joined by special guest and author, Jim Carlough. He's author of the book, The 6 Pillars of Effective Leadership, A Roadmap to Success. And he is a leader and mentor, having operated in the C-suite and executive levels for over 30 years, driving explosive growth and profitability for healthcare and healthcare technology organizations, ranging from startup to large-scale enterprises. He is a strategic leader capable of energizing and transforming any organization, and he has so many valuable drops for us today. This episode is for you if you've been told you're a leader, but you're not sure how to show up that way. You're in a leadership role, but second-guessing your ability to lead effectively. You want to build a team that trusts you and follows your lead for the right reasons. Or you've struggled with balancing compassion and authority. We're going to talk about the number one factor that keeps high-potential people stuck. What shapes leadership more than success, what it really means to lead with empathy without being walked over. The non-negotiable pillar in Jim's 6 Pillars of Effective Leadership, and the life-changing question Jim has asked himself every night since 1983. Let's dive in. Welcome, Jim.
Thank you for having me. I am really excited to be here this morning with you, Dawn. I've been looking forward to this all week.
Well, I am very excited for our conversation and for our listeners to learn more from you. So you have said that leaders aren't born, they're developed. Tell me, what do you see as the most common, maybe internal block that holds people back from stepping into their leadership potential?
I think people are held back from fear. In the people that I mentor, and I've been mentoring people for about 25 years, they want to take that step, but they're fearful that it'll ruin existing relationships or that they're going to be horrible at it. And I try to help them and say, it's a learning process. And I'm big on the fact that leaders are developed. They're not born that way. And I'm a perfect example of that. When I look back at my own career, when I started out in my first management role, when I was in my 20s, I was horrible. I can't imagine what people thought of me. I was not approachable. I was not anything of what I am today. So I'm a perfect example of someone who, through having great leaders and mentors myself, have developed a system that works and one that resonates with people, and one where I have a lot of people who continue to try to come back and work for me after I've moved to another role.
At the Self-Trust Coach, we talk a lot about doing it messy, like do it wrong, do it messy, instead of holding yourself back by telling yourself that I'm not going to be good at it or I might ruin relationships. Do it so that you can learn what you don't like about how you're doing it, what other people don't like about how you're doing it, and use that data to then build yourself into the leader you want to be.
I totally agree. And, if you compare that to a project or an activity at work, people are afraid to fail at that, but we learn from failing. So I tell my teams, we will take risks. They may be calculated, but we want to make sure we take the appropriate risk. And if we make a mistake, we identify it, we don't repeat it, and we move on. And it's the same thing with leadership or dealing with people. If we make a mistake, call a timeout and do a redo, do a replay, and get it right and move forward.
Absolutely. Yes. We have to be willing to learn. We want to fail, honestly. I tell my clients all the time. We rarely learn life changing, goal reaching lessons from everything going the way we expected it to.
I totally agree.
All
Totally agree.
juicy, fruitful, best lessons come from failing.
Come from So it's funny, they either come from failing or tragedy, I believe,
Mhm.
because you learn from both lifelong lessons. And those lessons will help guide you in future situations, whether you realize it or not. And you'll find yourself acting away and saying, wow, that's related to this episode and it's interesting how the brain works and connects those dots for you. I mean, the brain's an amazing thing, but it really is truthfully very similar.
Yeah. And you know what's interesting about those two things, tragedies and failures, is those are moments that stretch us, whether we're looking to be stretched or not. And I think that aligns so much with leadership and reaching for goals and big dreams is those are intentional stretching. But if we're timid towards that stretch, that's why we aren't stepping into it as boldly, and we don't have that choice when it comes to tragedies and failures.
Correct. We're not driving the train sometimes, and we have to be ready for when that train collides with us and how we respond to that.
So true. Well, your book, The Six Pillars of Effective Leadership, outlines pillars that really impact leadership and make you a more effective leader. Tell us a little bit about that, whether it's a high level overview or one that you'd really like for our listeners to walk away with today.
So in all of my mentoring, I have discovered that people are intelligent. They don't lack intelligence. What people lack as they get into leadership or management is the ability to understand and to relate to the people they're working with. And as I said before, when I first became a leader, I was horrible. I didn't have compassion. I wasn't approachable. I didn't know what empathy was. And those are all things that are critical. And that if a leader understands that and can adopt some of those practices, they will be highly successful because those things build strong teams, they build strong relationships, and they build commitment.
Mm,
And these aren't rocket science themes. These are interpersonal themes that I don't think you learn in business school or in other places. You learn them in life.
yeah.
And the reality is those are pillars that we need today more than ever in terms of structure and in leadership and in the world today. I truly believe.
Yeah. What about listeners thinking to be compassionate, to be too like empathetic, you're going to get walked all over? What would you say to that?
I totally disagree with that. And I disagree with that because let me tell you a story on empathy and how I struggled with it in a situation. I worked for an IT company and I had several departments, one of which was, and I'm going to be dating myself now, but for those of your listeners who remember green screen technology and when your computer didn't have a mouse, it may resonate. But we had one software platform that was old green screen technology that was being replaced with Windows based technology. And I had a group of 25 people that I had to tell them that their jobs were going away. Now, the challenge was their jobs were going away, but they wouldn't be going away tomorrow. It would take 3 years for us to convert customers. And I said, what do I need to do in order to demonstrate to the team that I've got their back and I will help them through this? And I searched and I searched and I came up with three things. And my expectation was if I can do this right, I will keep people long enough to make all of the transitions happen and be successful at it, and they will still land on their feet. So the first commitment was I would give them as much notice as possible. before their job would be eliminated. So if I knew a customer was converting in October, I would tell these two people that may be impacted, your job's probably going away in September. Okay, that's 6 months away. So now we have a roadmap. So that was commitment number one. Commitment number two was, if you want to learn the new technology platform programming languages, I will make that education available to you during the workday. And so that by the time it was for you to move out of your current role, you could move into a new position with the new technology platform. And so there's a pathway to do that. The third commitment I said was, if you don't want to do that, but you still want to stay with the company, I will personally invest time and help find you a job within the company. And for those who don't want to stay with the company that would like to go search on the outside, I will personally help you there as well. Two things happened. The first thing that happened is everybody stayed until the time it was for them to leave. Nobody left early, which was my goal. What I didn't expect to have happen in that 3-year period, that team of 25 people, as they graded down, had the highest employee satisfaction levels in a 20,000 person company.
Yeah.
I did not expect that.
Yeah.
But I truly understood, if I was in their position, what I would need and what I would want to stay committed. And so anyway, I offer that as an example.
Yes. I think what you're describing, and tell me if I'm wrong, is there's a difference between empathy through leadership and empathy of feeling sorry for someone and sort of coddling. That would lead to that misconception of being walked over. It's
Correct.
really employing an overall view of, here's what my team is going to need, this is what the company needs, and this is how I can support that all the way through in a way that aligns and honors who I want to be as a leader.
Absolutely correct. You nailed it.
Love it. So you've mentored over 50 leaders in your career. Tell me, what are some of maybe the patterns or habits that you've seen in high potential individuals who just can't quite break through before their mentorship with you?
So they don't know where to start. And they're afraid at that first moment, they're going to be hit with the most complex thing that they've never been hit with before, and they won't know how to handle it. So I've always encouraged anybody that I've mentored. Oh, first off, I'm very big on mentoring. I have a mentor. I have more than one mentor. And I encourage them to have multiple mentors. And mentors are not necessarily people you work with, and they may not necessarily be the person you report to, but they certainly can be. And your leader doesn't want you to fail. The person I report to doesn't want me to fail. So having that open communication with them is important. And then also having relationships with people that you can tap into to say, hey, I'm struggling with this little issue over here. I don't know really how to handle it. Have you ever experienced that? And being able to talk through it with someone who's not directly involved will help you also grow and develop, because it's like you're tapping into other experts and other professionals who have done it before. And so I think that's where people get hung up and get most hesitant, because they're afraid to take that leap and then fail a little or make a little mistake. And what I tell people is, and I mean no disrespect to any physicians or surgeons that are out there, is what we do on a daily basis is not open heart surgery. Nobody's going to die if we take 10 minutes to try to talk through it and figure it out. I mean, if I was going to be an open heart surgeon, I would have to really be worried about life decisions like that. But in what we do in business, that's not going to happen. There's nobody on the table waiting for an incision to happen or a repair to happen to save their life. And so it's worthwhile to take the time to talk through that.
Absolutely. And many times that urgency that we feel is unfounded. It's sort of a nervous system response to jump into action. And when we can slow down and access our higher thought processes, our genius, if you will, the result is going to be so much better.
So
So,
much better. And it's almost like you're reacting as an adrenaline rush,
mhm,
and you need to slow down that adrenaline and that excitement just to make sure that you dot your I's and cross your T's.
yes. And I think that's what's so great about mentorship. I also am a mentor and have a mentor. And and as a coach, of course, there's just parts when we can only access what we often have readily available to us. And that comes from past, it comes from voices of other people, experts. But if we're just trying to access all of that, we can only keep repeating the past. And to go into the future with new ideas and expansion, we have to access different parts of our brain. And that means having someone else to help us do that. It's so
Absolutely.
important.
Absolutely correct. I think we're very aligned on that.
Yes. So, what's one practical step someone can take to begin showing up as a stronger leader, like today?
So I will say, and I do say it in my book, the one pillar that to me is non-negotiable is integrity.
Mm,
Because I think in our world that we live in today, we see examples, too many examples of a lack of that. My correlation to that is leaders who continually shift people in and out only to hide their own inabilities to lead. The moving chairs on the Titanic is not going to prevent it from falling to the ocean floor. And so that's not the right approach. But what I have found is, and I learned this very early in my career, that integrity, if you follow that same path every day, day in and day out, everyone will understand that the way you respond to things as a leader is consistent. And somebody once told me, an employee, after they were having conflict, and unfortunately she got emotional and started to cry, and that upset me because I thought I hurt her feelings. But she did it because she said, "You're always right." And I said, "No, no, 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 no. I'm not always right." And she said, "No, you really are always, you always you always do the right thing." And I think that is so important for a leader today. If you don't follow that path, your team won't follow you. Your team won't believe in you. Your team won't trust you. So integrity, if you can't have that today, you're not going to have a loyal team. You're not going to have a team that's going to be committed to you. And I think about our military leaders. God forbid there's a war or something. They train those men to follow those leaders. In the business world, we have to do things to get people to follow our vision and to follow us, and to come to us so we can work together with that. And to me, integrity is, if my book was a statue, integrity would be the pedestal
mm.
that the statue stood on. And but it's so important. I call it the non-negotiable characteristic.
Yeah. We talk a lot about values, integrity. I often share that I have three core values, and they are knowledge, integrity, and service. And I think if we use that as our guiding light, we can make decisions through that. They become a filter. Is this me acting in integrity if I choose this, or is it maybe not? They can really be your guiding light towards everything. I think integrity is really important, but we have to define what that means for us individually first.
We do. And I had it defined to me when I was 23 years old, right out of college. When I graduated college, I ran for the local city government in the town I grew up in, and I won a city council position. And then I also won re-election 3 years later. So I did something right. But shortly after the election, the city manager asked to speak with me. And this is something that your listeners can implement. And it involves integrity and it's easy. He sat me down and he didn't want to he said, look, I'm not going to tell you what to do. You're a smart guy. He said, but I am going to ask you to do me a favor. Every night when you put your head on the pillow, before you close your eyes, I want you to ask yourself one question. And I want you to ask yourself, did I do anything today for my own self benefit at the expense of another individual, organization, or group of people? And he said to me, if you can say no, you've had a good day. If you ever say yes, you need to reevaluate what you did that day and not repeat it. Do you know, ever since that day in 1983, I have asked myself that question every single night. And I've never said yes to that question.
That's a beautiful example of how to tap in because integrity is going to mean something different. Like me standing in integrity in my business means something different maybe than what it means in yours. But what a really universally useful question to ask. So, did I do anything today for my own self benefit at the expense of someone else, another organization
Individual or team.
or team?
And it's adaptable to any type of organization, operation, position, or whatever.
Yeah.
And so it was really life altering for me. And it was so simple. That is the first thing that I talk to people about when they come to me about mentoring.
Yes. So for 42 years, this question has been in your mind around there.
Are we giving my age away now? Is that
No
what?
way.
No,
That's since 1980. That's
I'm kidding.
that's really powerful to show
Yes,
that for that long, that question has been your barometer, if you will, of how you're showing up in integrity each day.
that is correct. And you do have the calculation correct as well. So, but the reality, but that was how powerful it was for me to hear it in that regard. And I think if somebody had said, Jim, I want to talk to you about integrity today, and we're going to spend the next 4 hours, I probably would have tuned out because here I am, a 23-year-old hotshot thinking I've just conquered the world and I don't need to listen to this. But
Yeah.
the city manager made it so simple and easy to follow and easy to implement. Yes, that's the first thing somebody hears from me when they say, would you be interested in mentoring me? I'd say, yes, but here's the non-negotiable part.
It
It's
grows
within
with you too, for sure. I think that's the other genius of this question is it grows with you because what integrity looks like for you as an 18-year-old kid is way different than what integrity looks like for you as an adult running a business or a team. And we
I,
want to allow that. I think that brings up a really good point of evolution. We are going to grow and change through the failures, through the wins, through the losses, through the tragedies. We're going to continue to evolve, and what we want and how we see ourselves will always change. But if we're always connected to, am I in service of integrity each day? We can always be
I
knowing
think,
where we stand and adjust when needed.
and I'm almost thinking that my next book could solely be on how to implement integrity into your life or business. And because it is so big, we could tackle it from many angles. And this just came into my mind, and I'm thinking of these 6, 7 different things. I'm thinking that could be a book in and of itself.
Absolutely. Integrity, we can use more of it in the world for sure. So I think this is such a beautiful invitation to our audience to really implement this question into your life. We'd love to hear if you do and what comes up for you. Jim, is there anything else you'd like to leave with us today?
Actually, you've given me a great idea. I would like to understand if your listeners resonate with that and feel that they could implement that or anything that we've talked about. In fact, I'm willing to do the following. For the first 3 people that post on your Spotify or wherever you release your or on your website or whatever, the first 3 people that post a comment about whether they can implement or will implement or it resonated with you, this conversation we've had today, I'll send you a free copy of my book. So all you've got to do, you don't need to come to my website. You can if you want to connect with me or on LinkedIn. But if you can go to Dawn's website and post a comment, and whether this resonated with you, the first 3 people will send you a copy of the book.
So good. All right, listeners, first 3 to comment. You can comment on Spotify, on Apple, either way, or on my website. And the first 3, Jim is going to send you his amazing book, The 6 Pillars of Effective Leadership. Thank you so much for joining us, Jim. This was such a great conversation. I know our audience will get so much out of it.
Great. I thank you for letting me be here, and maybe we can come back and do this again.
What will you take away from today's episode? Here are my 5 invitations. 1, leaders are developed, not born. Failing forward is a key part of that process. 2, mentorship accelerates leadership growth, especially when it challenges how you think. 3 is empathy does not make you weak. It makes you effective. 4 is integrity is the foundation. When it's consistent, people will follow. And finally, ask this nightly. Did I do anything today for my own self-benefit at the expense of another person or group? If yes, reevaluate. If no, you're leading well. This episode is your invitation to start leading from the inside out, starting with how you measure your day. Share your thoughts in the comments, and if you're one of the first 3 listeners to do so, Jim will send you a free copy of his book, The 6 Pillars of Effective Leadership. Let us know how this episode resonated. We'd love to hear how you're implementing the question in your own leadership practice. Inside every goal is a decision, an action, an evaluation, and an adjustment. Keep building your rhythm with the Self-Trust Solution. Subscribe, leave a review, and explore how we can work together at theselftrustcoach.com. I'll see you in the next episode.